Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. First ever time on the Pat Mayo Experience, or any of my shows ever, we're talking tennis. U.S. Opens tennis, men's odds, women's odds, some tennis strategy when it comes down to betting, maybe even some DraftKings strategy as well. If you're a DFS, DK tennis player, what I need you to do is smash the like button to the video. In the comment section, please tell me who you think is going to win from the women's side and the men's side at the U.S. Open this time around. Also, remember to subscribe to the audio podcast, rate the show 5 stars, and be on your way. Share the show around. We need to get the subs on Mayo Media Network up and up and up and up and up. So that's only good news for everyone. That means more content for everyone. But hey, we're trying out some tennis today. See how this goes. If it goes well, then I think that we can kind of keep this going. At least Grand Slams for the time being, because I've been getting back into tennis just a little bit. Subscribe to Mayo Media Network, by the way. You got to do that. But one of the places I am subscribed to is the Fade the Noise betting package, ftnbets.com. Promo code Mayo for a discount. And I've been digging the tennis section. Mainly because I've been winning. I don't know anything about tennis, although when I start looking at some of the names at the top of the men's draw, I'm just like, well, these are the same people who were there 15 years ago, so I can jump back in pretty easily. It's the people with the weird Eastern European names, which I'm going to butcher 100%. That's where I need to go, because I don't see my guy Marat Safin around anymore, so I can't just blindly bet on him. So what I've been doing is basically just tailing Josh Gross from over at ftnbets.com. I thought he was a bot when I started following him on Twitter, because it's at Josh3302. I was like, that's a bot name. But it turns out he's a real dude, and he's on the line. What's going on, Josh?
Good to be on, and I got to be honest, that's not the first time I've heard that.
Hey, let's see. Maybe you just turn it to like Josh Tennis, or just use your entire name. I mean, I actually did think that you were like a spam bot when it came out of it. But then I started winning money with the picks, and I was like, you know what? Bot or not, I'm in.
Well, something was working, whether or not I was a bot or not.
So we're taking these odds right now from dksportsbook.com. We're going to start off with the men's side of things. These are all the futures right now because the draw has actually been released. Novak Djokovic is a minus 125 favorite to win this tournament. Do you think that's too high or too low for him here right now without Federer and Nadal around?
Well, without Federer and Nadal, he's probably priced where he should be. Just looking back at history, it's pretty much the same price that Nadal gets when he's at the French Open. In past years, it's really only been Nadal that's challenged him at Grand Slams because he's just too good in 5 sets. Getting 3 sets off Djokovic is a ridiculously tall task. And without either Nadal or Federer, and really just Nadal these days, it's going to be a pretty difficult job to dethrone Djokovic, especially on the quick hard court surface.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to ask you. Like, obviously, if you get Nadal on clay, that plays to his advantage. Clearly, Wimbledon, the grass surface with Roger Federer, that works out, although he's pretty good everywhere. But when you get to a hard surface like this, like the Australian Open, is that going to lend credence to a potential upset from someone who just absolutely annihilates their serves? Like, is Milos Raonic live because he just might ace everyone to death?
It's actually funny you say that. Milos Raonic is in the final of the Western and Southern Open this week, which is actually being played at the same location as the U.S. Open is because they have a whole bubble for both events. And he's actually playing Djokovic tomorrow in the final. So we should get a good idea of how he'll be able to handle Djokovic. But he's played really well this week. And right now, I mean, we'll get into it a little bit later, but he's got a good price. And without 2 of the other big 3 there, somebody's probably going to make a deep run. And if they happen to have their best day, it's going to be a good opportunity to push Djokovic.
Well, I see someone. I mean, I'm Canadian, so I hear about Milos all the time. Not great. I'm not going to lie to you. He's not like a fun guy to watch play tennis. But it seems to me like if he were to have a path to actually win the U.S. Open, someone else would need to beat Djokovic along the way, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they actually threw out a stat today on the broadcast that he's 0-10 head-to-head. And I think 5 of them were at Masters 1000 events, which are basically the one step below the Grand Slams. So yeah, I mean, he doesn't really stand much of a chance against Djokovic unless he happens to have a career match. But there's definitely others in the field that could take Djokovic out, and he's actually a little bit banged up right now. So it's been a long break from tennis, and he's coming off a COVID bout, and he's looking a little bit sluggish. So you never know. You just never know what could happen with him.
So if it's not going to be Djokovic from the top, and I don't know if I can feasibly bet on Milos Raonic. There's a couple guys like 6-1, 750, 9-1, 20-1, 20-1 as we go down. Like I said, these are names. I assume this guy Stefanos, with the Greek last name, is from Greece. Is he from Cyprus? Is like, where's this guy from?
He is from Greece.
Yeah, see, there we go. See, I'm just going to end up butchering all of these names. So we got like Russians or Eastern Europeans, whoever they might be, who, if we just took Djokovic out of this, who would you cap as like your three favorites to at least get to the final?
To get to the final, I would have to go first off with Daniil Medvedev. He reached the final last year, and I'm trying to think who actually beat in the semifinal off the top of my head. He didn't beat Djokovic, I know that, but he ended up losing to Nadal in 5 sets. It's a new surface on the hard court at the U.S. Open, so it's not exactly like last year. So it's hard to really justify results from previous years at the U.S. Open, but he's arguably one level behind the big three right now. He came off a ridiculous summer last year. He didn't play much during the whole quarantine, but he came out firing just like last year before he got ousted by Roberto Bautista this week. But he's got everything you need to really win a Grand Slam. It's just if he can avoid any of those guys in the tier above him, he should really take a step ahead. But yeah, I mean, he's got a good shot at getting to the final.
Other than that, like if we go down the list, like I see Andy Murray's name on this, and since I looked at my watch and it's not 2009, should that mean anything to me? Is he like overvalued because people actually know who Andy Murray is, or has he now successfully returned? And if he gets it all together, he could play one last great tournament.
Well, he's actually looked pretty good. I'm gonna give him some credit. He's definitely not what he used to be as a player. He's got literally a metal hip, and the tour jokes about that all the time with him. But, he looks good. He beat Alexander Zverev, who is, one of the up and coming stars in the game. So, I mean, he's got the goods. It's just a matter of whether or not he can put 2 weeks worth of wins together and whether or not his body can hold up.
Yeah, I guess with 5 sets instead of 3 sets, is that like I assume that just favors the better player over time, like anything does, almost like a 7-game series versus a 5-game series. You're going to see fewer upsets in a 7-game series in almost any sport than you would in 5. You just have a larger sample to end up going by. So when it comes to men's tennis, do you actually even like bet the outrights before the tournament starts, or is men's tennis better served to be betting day by day?
I prefer day by day just because it's so top heavy with specifically Djokovic. And you really rarely see anybody outside maybe 20-1 make a deep run, let alone win the whole thing. But value pops up every day. So it's just a better route to go with men's.
So does that actually work out for women's tennis as well? Because it seems like they're just far more upsets in women's tennis, even if it's like Serena losing or something like that. That was one I tailed you on the other day. I haven't got the sets right on that one. Just like, yeah, let Serena get out to a bit of a lead here and just watch it all crumble. She's not looking great. And boom, she ends up losing. So she's not even the favorite on the women's side. But does women's outright betting before a tournament start lend itself better to long shots and underdogs?
Yeah, I love the outrights on the women's side. There's so much more volatility with the women that there's value everywhere pretty much on the board. And the favorites, at least in recent Grand Slams, have rarely won. They'll make deep runs and get to a semifinal or a final, but the last 3 hard court Grand Slams winners have all been, I believe, 30-1 or longer.
So I'm looking at the women's odds right now. Osaka is the favorite. She's 4-1. Serena's 5.5-1. So in terms of outright betting on a tournament, does Serena get like the Tiger Woods treatment where that's who everyone who doesn't know anything about tennis is going to bet on, so they can price her whatever they want and people are still going to bet? They'll be like, oh, 5.5-1. That sounds pretty good. Like what do you think her legitimate odds, if you were pricing it, should be to win the US Open?
This year, I wouldn't touch her for anything less than like, 20-1 maybe would be pushing it a little bit. I wouldn't touch her for anything around 30-1 or less.
All right, so just wipe her right off the map then, just to start. Don't bet Serena outright.
Yeah, she hasn't been the same player since she gave birth to her daughter, and the last couple of weeks specifically, she doesn't look good. Like, there's really no other way to put it.
So where do you think that the value lies in the outright market from the women's side?
Well, one name specifically that I've been pretty vocal about on social media, Alina Rybakina. Right now, she is 33-1 on DraftKings, and she's been as high, I think, as 50-1 and as low as, I want to say, 21-1.
So you look around to find the odds on her.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is there anyone else from like that deep back in the pack you can actually see making a run at this? Because like I was even looking, I think it's Djokovic versus Raonic in the finals of the tournament that's going on right now. I think he's like a minus 550 favorite. So even if you got your long shot to the finals against Djokovic, you can't even really hedge out of it because it's not worth it. It does seem like in women's, like, do you see like a minus 550 favorite unless it was like Serena versus the worst player in the field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. If you see a finals matchup, unless it's somebody that's like you've never heard before that's making a miracle run, you're probably going to see tighter odds on it, just for the benefit of the doubt that they made a run in the first place.
Well, if that's the case, then is there anyone lower than 33-1? Is there like 100-1 long shot, an 80-1 long shot that you can see at least getting to like the quarters, maybe the semis, and then you could potentially just even hedge out your money on the other side?
Well, one name at 50-1 that's caught my eye in recent days, Amanda Anisimova out of the US. She's an 18-year-old who made a semifinal run at the French Open last year and unfortunately missed the US Open because her father passed away, I think a week before the US Open last year. But she's back now and she has a new coach that seems to have improved her game a little bit, and she has a pretty nice draw, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah. Well, actually, let's jump into that right now then. So the women's draw by itself, when it came out, like, did you see a path for certain people being like, oh, that's an easy side of the draw?
Ironically, I couldn't believe the draw that Serena got. I predicted it, but it didn't surprise me in the slightest that they're going to gift her as good a draw as possible to try to get her as deep in the tournament as they can. But she's going to eventually run into either Anisimova or Maria Sakkari out of Greece, who just beat her this week on the same surface, on the same courts. So that section and quarter stands out to me just because Serena's the big name in it. And if she's out, it's going to be wide open.
All right. So in terms of the men's draw, unless there's something else from the women's draw that you saw outside of that one quarter being like, all right, here we go. There's some potential upset possibility for someone to sneak through and get all the way through. Is there anything like that on the men's side?
On the men's side, there was, I have to get to the draw quickly for a sec. I just forgot where it was though. Yeah, I mean, we talked about him earlier, but Milos Raonic has
that's a hard sell. That's such a hard sell for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's two other top 15 seeds in his section alone, but they both have tough first round matchups, and if they happen to get past their first round matchup, they have even more difficult second round matchups. So it's possible that some of the seeds before they reach him in the draw are out of the tournament completely before. And that just gives them an opportunity to get further than he probably should. But just the way that he's been playing, along with the draw that he has, really gives him an opportunity.
All right, so I guess Milos it is. I don't want to back him at 17-1. Whatever happened to my girl, Eugenie Bouchard? Is she any good anymore, or is she just like not playing tennis?
I try to give Jeannie as much credit as possible, but she's nowhere near as good as she used to be. But I'll give her some credit though. She's getting better. She's playing a I guess it's considered an ITF. It's basically like a lower level tournament in Prague on clay. So she's prepping for the French Open. So we'll see what she does there, and you never know.
I guess so. Like, I mean, just following her, just because it was all over the news up here, like how good she was, like Canada's next big tennis star. And then she like fell in the locker room, and she hasn't been good since. Like, is that the injury that's going on, or is it something else more than that?
I think it's just confidence. After that injury, she pretty much lost all her confidence in her game, and she's gone through at least 6 or 7 coaches in the last couple of years. But I like what she's got right now. She's got Renee Stubbs, a former professional who had a great career herself, and she worked with one of the best trainers in the game or in the industry during the quarantine, and she's really gotten into good fitness. So she's got a chance to turn it around, but she's got to get her confidence back.
All right, so shout out Jeannie. Hope you make the comeback. I mean, I would enjoy watching that, especially if it's going to be. When is the French Open anyway? Like, everything is just like blowing my mind right now, because there's like Kentucky Derby coming up. There's golf majors. Obviously, football is starting. When is the French Open?
I believe it's 2 or 3 weeks after the end of the U.S. Open, so sometime in the end of September.
It's going to be a busy month for me, especially if we keep doing these Grand Slam shows. Is there anything from day one, like matchup-wise, that you saw where like, oh, boy, that's a mispricing?
Not on the on money lines or spreads, but I actually like the over on the Steve Johnson John Isner match.
Okay.
The two have played a few matches head to head, and they're both big servers. We know Isner's got the biggest serve in the game, probably all time. But Steve Johnson has a pretty big serve himself, and Isner's not great at breaking serve. So that match should get a couple tie breaks, and you rarely see someone win 3 straight tie breaks. So if they happen to play multiple tie breaks, it's possible that Johnson takes a set off the tie break and they end up playing 4+ sets. And right now, I believe the over is 40.5.
And that's even money on both sides, like a -110 on each side?
Yeah, it should be somewhere around there.
All right, so Johnson Isner over. All right, here we go. Are there any like fool's gold players who are ranked very highly on either the men's or the women's side? Like in the men's side, is there someone with like a 11 seed you're like, yeah, he's not good. He's not going to play well?
Right now, just based off form alone, I would have to say Alexander Zverev.
Really?
Yeah, he's got a bit of the yips on his serve, and it's odd because he's got one of the best serves in the game, but it's his second serve that he just I can't figure out what it is. I don't think anybody on his team can figure out what it is. But part of it comes, I think, to his ball toss. He tosses it a little bit too high and just throws off his serve completely, and he'll miss by 5 feet on a second serve.
Yeah, and I assume on the women's draw, like if you look, they see the top 32, right? I'm not crazy in thinking that.
Yeah, it's the top 32, so they get, I believe, 4 seeds in each section.
Okay. So is there anyone in the women's side that you would say like hard pass on them, like inside like the top 16, let's say?
Top 16,
maybe top 20.
I'll probably say Diana Yastremska, and it's tough to say her because she's got a great game and she's a young player that really would have an opportunity to win a Grand Slam, even at her young age and inexperience. But she's been battling a few injuries, and she can be a bit immature on the court. She'll call for trainers and medical timeouts multiple times in a match and really try to get under the skin of her opponents. But this last week, she turned her ankle against Venus. Didn't seem to be a problem, but it developed blisters on her foot, which then, I guess, with her movement trying to avoid the pain from the blisters, messed up her knee a little bit. So she's got a lot going on, and I just don't see her making that deep of a run this year.
All right. Well, what about Venus? Is like Venus? I just didn't realize she was even playing tennis anymore. Is like she any good?
She's definitely not the player she used to be.
No. Well, I don't remember when it was. Didn't she win Wimbledon like sometime within the past 5 years?
She didn't win, but she got to the final and lost to Garbine Muguruza.
So could she do that here?
I don't think she's got any shot, honestly. But
okay.
She has a tough first round matchup, and she probably could make an upset, but she just doesn't have the durability to go deep into a tournament anymore.
Yeah, her first round, actually, I'm just looking at sets right now. That's over under 20.5 for the first one. Let's see here. Match lines on Venus. Venus is a plus 160. Like, that's a tough matchup. Like, she's an underdog. Like, could she win her first round matchup?
Yeah, she definitely could. I mean, with Venus, it always comes down to her serve. Her serve was abysmal last year, and she changed it up during the quarantine, and it's looked somewhat improved, but it's still pretty inconsistent. But if she strings a match together where her first serve percentage is above her norm, she has a shot to upset pretty much anybody. But it's a tall task for her.
Right, so Karolina Muchova is pretty good.
Yeah, she's one of those young up and coming players that she probably shouldn't be ranked inside the top. I guess she's got to be ranked 35th with all the seeds that are withdrawn. So she's definitely not the level of her actual seed in the tournament, but she's got good talent for the young player that she is.
All right. Do you do any like actual DraftKings tennis? Like, do you have any insight to that?
Oh yeah, I play as much as I can.
So what is like, if I'm just kind of going to DraftKings right now, I've never played tennis on DraftKings mainly because I don't know. I feel like I now know 3,000% more than I did before. This is great. I know how some of these names are pronounced, but like what types of players should I be looking for? Like, especially on like day 1, day 2 of a Grand Slam, are you looking for the person who gets the most aces? Are you trying to figure out which is the 5-setter and try to get exposure to that because you're just going to accumulate more points? Like, what is the optimal strategy to try to take?
Well, the most optimal would be quick and easy. If you can get somebody that's going to make quick work of their opponents, they're going to score the highest amount of points just based off the fact that they're not going to be losing points for the amount of games they've lost, potential double faults, etc. But I don't necessarily like chasing guys that put up a ton of aces, but it does help their floors and their ceilings if the matches do go 4+ sets.
So is there like a lean between like men's and women's? Like, I assume there are more aces just amongst the men as there would be in women. I could be dead wrong on that. But at the same time, like, do you have like a stack between like an all men's team and all women's team, or do you try to find the value on both sides?
I always try to find value on both sides, especially because there's more volatility on the women's side. You'll see a lot of girls that get down early that just give up, essentially. And yeah, on the men's side, because it's 5 sets, they actually have different scoring types for the two genders. For example, I think on the men's side with 5 sets, you get 0.25 points per ace, and on the women's side, because it's 3 sets, you get 0.4. So it's a little bit weighted towards both.
Okay, I didn't realize that there were like equalizers between it just because you would get the extra 2 sets. That actually makes an incredible amount of sense. That's why I was thinking like go all men's. They might go to 5 sets. This is great. But at the same time, do you find that yourself taking like the men's like high price players and try to find like your low price players or value players from the women's side?
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a strategy that makes sense because you see more upsets on the women's side. and the men tend to have better control on their opponents.
Who is like the best DraftKings tennis player?
Oof, that's actually a tough one. Um, for the men, I would say Djokovic, which is a no-brainer. But I don't even know if there's one on the women's side.
So that you would just be really like, especially for a tournament like this, where the favorite for the tournament is plus 450, that you can kind of lean into a bunch of different players here. Like, is there like I mentioned Raonic? Like Raonic is like all serve basically. The guy looks like he's gonna break his kneecaps every time he tries to move laterally. Is there anyone on the women's side like that who's just basically all serve?
Well, we actually discussed her a little bit ago. Alina Rybakina. She's got the highest amount of aces on tour this year. I think it was something like 130, and it's like 30 more than the next person. Obviously, they haven't played that much this year, but she's got one of the fastest serves too on tour, and she can wipe anybody off the court with her serve if it's working that day.
So I mean, in like round one, day one DraftKings, is she someone that you would kind of gravitate towards then?
Probably, yeah, because of the matchup she's going to have. Her form definitely wasn't great last week, but that could have just been that trust, which has happened with pretty much everybody from the time off. But they're going to all these top seeds are going to be, for the most part, playing girls and guys outside the top 90, I would say, in ranking. So they should have pretty good matchups to take advantage of.
Could it be telling that if you were just going to look at who you should pick on DraftKings, go just open the tab to DraftKings Sportsbook and look at the head-to-head odds? Like I see some people in the just day one that are like minus 1,400 favorites. Do I just be like, oh, they're minus 1,400, I should probably use them? Or does the scoring make that a bit more difficult?
The scoring and the pricing is going to make it more difficult because the heavy favorites like that are probably going to end up being around 11,000 plus, which is going to get rid of over 20% of your cap and probably mean that you're going to have to take on an extra value play. My personal take on the early days of Grand Slam events is that you're going to find somebody with similar ceilings in the 9K range. So you'll be able to accumulate similar production out of some of the lower, I guess, valued favorites.
All right. Josh Gross, FTNBets.com. Tell everyone what you got cooking up over there and how they can actually follow you when you're updating your bets and the kind of the spin that you're putting on things, because you absolutely nailed the one last night.
So we have a bet tracker that has all the sports included if you purchase that sport. And basically every day I'll update my picks with the tennis section of the bet tracker, and you'll be able to follow along all the picks from that day and track all the props and sides, totals, etc. From previous days, and it'll have all of that tracked with units, win-loss record, and everything that I've given in the previous days.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome to know, just to see the accountability that's up there behind it. I've been doing really well with it, so thank you very much for that. I really do.
Of course.
My bank account appreciates it. My wife appreciated the Uber Eats dinner I got her the other night. So I'm like, yeah, walked into some extra cash, found it when I was walking down the road, made sure I wiped it down with some disinfectant. It's all good. Let's pay for some cash here. But at the same time, like, what... Now I've completely lost my train of thought because I'm thinking about winning money again. Oh, yeah. Code Mayo. Get yourself a discount over at ftnbets.com if you want to follow along with the tennis. Now, what I want to say is there's real value in the props to this stuff, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. I've noticed that some of the props can be mispriced in tennis, and it all depends on matchups, and they really like to price them off previous statistics. So value can pop up every now and then, and those are probably the best areas to attack in matches.
Is there any like merit to obviously you see the odds come out, you're scanning it, you're going through it. Is tennis one of the sports where you really do want to hit it early before the odds get a chance to adjust?
Absolutely. I've noticed even post quarantine, they really haven't priced some of the matchups um, to where they should be, at least on the opening. And a lot of the guys and girls' forms have changed in the last 4 or 5 months, or however long it's been since they've really last played professionally. Um, and it's a market that moves very quickly.
So you want to be up to date on what you're up to. Like, you're making the bet, then posting it, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah, so that's always the best way to do it. So you want to keep up to date to that, even like turn on a notification or two to make sure that you're not missing out on what could appear to be a really good line. The one benefit, especially right now, and it's probably going to happen more with the French Open, although the French Open is going to be like really wonky times. It's going to be super early in the morning. Or if you just stay up really late, you can probably be good at it too. Is that with football, with golf, with basketball, with baseball, with hockey, all going on at the same time, I'm guessing a lot of the American books will be slower to the draw to update some of the mispricing unless they get absolutely hammered on it right away, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Josh Gross at Josh3302 on the Twitter machine. Thanks for coming on, man. This is fun. I do really feel like I'm more educated on tennis right now. It's not just wearing a fancy polo. I figure I do golf. Might as well give tennis a shot too. Seems like it's right down my alley.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was great.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at the PME on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Please subscribe to the Mayo Media Network on YouTube and download the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast and rate it 5 stars. Use code Mayo at ftnbets.com. Get yourself a discount and you can go check out all of Josh Betts up there, plus everything else that's going on over at FTN Bets as well. I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!